I'm Edwina Robinson. I'm a landscape architect and I founded the Climate Factory in 2019 after Australia sweltered through its hottest and driest year on record. So we're here in Mourya, New South Wales, so it's a small town just slightly inland, and we've created what I like to call a microforest. So that's a densely planted forest, and we actually chose an endangered local plant community called Dry Rainforest, and it's dominated by a couple of species. Plants like Ficus rubignosa or Port Jackson fig, Ficus coronata, as well as the grey myrtle. We've used the Miyawaki method to create this dry rainforest. So we've used 3 plants per square metre and we've got about 500 square metres of garden beds. So in total, once we've finished planting, there'll be 1,500 plants altogether. The Miyawaki method originates in Japan, and it was started off by a Japanese ecologist called Akira Miyawaki, and he went around building, I think it's thousands of tiny forests throughout Japan, and often he'd be planting them in places perhaps to avoid typhoons or other devastating environmental effects. And his method was then popularised overseas by Shubhendu Sharma of a forest, and then the method now is in many places throughout the world where people are creating tiny or microforests. So predominantly it's about dense planting of plants that occur in local forests, improving soil organically, and not doing any maintenance after 3 years. And so one of the reasons we want to build those microforests is to actually cool down the local environment. So when we build our cities and towns, we tend to take away a lot of our natural surfaces and our vegetation. And so by actually reinstating vegetation that cools the landscape, plus putting water into the ground, we can actually cool the landscape. One of the benefits of planting a microforest is that we plant all different layers. So we're planting ground covers through to vines and trees and shrubs. So that's great for birds. There's lots of places for them to nest and forage. So we've also included a number of pollinator plants in our garden, and that's to attract different birds into the garden as well as different pollinators. And some of the more common birds you might expect to see might be things like the rainbow lorikeets, the king parrots, and perhaps bowerbirds, which are a little bit more secretive. There's 2 endangered birds that occur in this part of the world, and they're both owls. So the sooty owl and the powerful owl, and they both require really big hollows to create their nests. So it's unlikely that we'll get them to occur here in the future or live here in the future, but they may come and prey on some of the animals that our microforest attracts. So we've got a water harvesting system underneath the microforest, and it's actually connected above ground to dry creek beds, and they're all interconnected. So in a big rainfall event or any rainfall event where there's excess runoff, that water will go down into those trenches. So the trenches are about 800 millimetres deep, and in the bottom half of those trenches is a combination of sand and gravel, and the water is actually held in the voids between the sand and gravel. So that means that roots eventually can get their way down to there, and there's this reservoir underneath where the water's held and can actually water those plants. So some of the great people we've worked with in this project are the community. So we ran a crowdfunding campaign and raised over $20,000 to help build this project. But we've had some other really great partners. We've had the local council have supplied plants for our pollinator bed. The local TAFE has grown a lot of the native plants for us. And we've had other people like Coast Watchers donate money, and private individuals donate more than $1,000 each. I think one of the benefits of a project like this is you get a core group of volunteers who come along and plant and maintain the microforest. So that's been a great way of forming connections with people who've got similar interests. So a lot of the people involved are volunteers who are interested in plants and wildlife, but also making a difference for the climate. So I find that if you create projects like this, it gives people hope that they can do a little something in their neighbourhood, even if they can't solve the bigger problem. So there were plovers and plover chicks here, and the plover parents were very cross with us a couple of months ago because we came to maintain the microforest. Not good.